chosen one, sit down right now, because what God is about to say to you is not a whisper meant to drift past your ears unnoticed. This is a summons. This is heaven pressing its hand firmly against the rushing current of your ordinary day and commanding everything around you to be still. You did not stumble onto this message by accident. You did not find this by chance. There is no algorithm powerful enough to orchestrate what God has already set in motion. And if you believe for even one moment that you ended up here because of coincidence, then you are about to have everything you thought you knew completely rearranged. This is divine intervention. This is a moment heaven has been preparing for longer than you have been alive, and it is arriving right now in this exact breath, in this exact moment of your life. God is speaking directly to you today, and the message is this: something massive is about to hit your life, not something small, not a slight improvement, not a minor adjustment to the edges of your existence, something massive. Something that will reach into every single corner of your life and rearrange what was broken, restore what was stolen, and release what has been held back by forces you could not see and battles you did not even know were being fought on your behalf. The word massive is not being used carelessly here. Heaven does not exaggerate. When God says massive, He means a movement so large, so undeniable, so beautifully overwhelming that you will not be able to explain it in natural terms. You will not be able to point to your own effort and take the credit. You will only be able to fall to your knees and whisper, "This could only be God." But before you receive it, you have to sit down. That command matters more than you may realize right now. Sit down. Stop running. Stop striving. Stop trying to force doors open with the weight of your own exhausted hands. Stop performing for an audience that was never meant to validate what heaven has already declared over your life. The divine instruction being released over you in this moment is not complicated, but it requires something that many people in your exact position have found extraordinarily difficult to do. It requires you to be still. And in that stillness, in that holy and sacred pause, the fullness of what God has prepared is going to come rushing toward you with a force that nothing on earth and nothing in the unseen realm will be able to stop. You need to understand something about who you are before you can fully receive what is coming. You are not an ordinary person who stumbled into faith and hopes for the best. You are someone who was marked before you ever took your first breath. Before your parents gave you a name, heaven already had one written for you. Before the world had any idea you would exist, God had already mapped out the moments that would shape you, the trials that would refine you, the losses that would hollow you, out just enough to create space for something greater to be poured in. You were not made for mediocrity. You were not fashioned for a life of simply getting by, surviving the week, and counting down to a future that never seems to arrive. You were made for this exact moment, for this precise juncture in your story where everything that has been dormant is about to come fully and explosively alive. If you have been feeling a heaviness lately that you cannot quite name, if there has been a pressure building in your spirit that feels like something is on the verge of breaking through, if you have had moments of inexplicable anticipation mixed with a weariness that goes bone deep, then listen carefully. Because God is confirming something to you right now. That feeling is not anxiety without cause. That feeling is not your mind playing tricks on you. That feeling is the sensation of heaven moving into position around your life. That is what it feels like when the invisible begins to shift before the visible catches up. You have been sensing it because your spirit knows before your natural mind can process it. Something is coming. Something is already on its way. And it is far greater than anything your imagination has dared to fully construct. Think about the road that brought you to this moment. Think about the years that felt wasted, the prayers that seemed to go unanswered, the seasons where you cried out to God and heard nothing but silence in return. Think about the relationships that shattered, the opportunities that slipped through your fingers, the doors that slammed in your face so hard the sound echoed for months. Think about the nights you lay awake, wondering if you had somehow been forgotten, if the promises spoken over your life were meant for someone else, if maybe you had misunderstood your own calling and wandered too far from the path to find your way back. Think about all of that, and then hear what God is saying to you now. None of it was wasted. Not a single tear, not a single broken night, not a single moment of confusion or grief or desperate prayer. Whispered in a dark room where no one else could hear you. Every single piece of it, every shattered thing and every silent season was being used by a God who wastes nothing and redeems everything. You were being prepared, and preparation rarely feels glorious when you are in the middle of it. Preparation feels like loss. It feels like delay. It feels like standing still while everyone around you seems to be moving forward, advancing, building lives that look from the outside like everything you were promised. Preparation feels like the loneliest kind of faithfulness, the kind where you keep showing up and keep trusting and keep believing, even when the evidence around you is doing its absolute best to convince you that you were wrong to hope. But here is what you need to know, and what God is declaring over you with full and unshakable authority right now. You were never standing still. Even in the seasons that looked like nothing was happening, heaven was working. Beneath the surface of your life, in the invisible architecture of your destiny, God was building something that could not be rushed, and could not be shortcut, and could not be delivered before the fullness of time had come. That fullness of time is now. It is here. It is this season. And God is not sending a small thing to meet you at the threshold of what is next. He is sending something massive. He is releasing a movement into your life that will touch your relationships, your provision, your health, your purpose, your peace, your joy, and your identity all at once. Not one thing at a time. Not a slow trickle of blessing that you have to squint to notice. A flood, an overwhelming, undeniable. Every wall comes down flood of the goodness and favor and power of a God who has been waiting for this exact moment just as much as you have. And so the command remains, sit down, not because you are weak, not because God needs you out of the way, but because what is coming is so large that if you are still running, still striving, still trying to manufacture your own breakthrough, you might actually miss it. You might be so busy digging wells in dry ground that you fail to notice the river God is releasing right beside you. Sitting down in this context is an act of the most profound and courageous faith you will ever exercise. It says, God, I trust that what you are sending is real, and I am going to stop interfering with my own miracle long enough for it to actually reach me. This is your moment. Not a moment you will look back on from a distance and wish you had taken seriously. Not a story you will tell someone else about a time you almost received what God had for you, but got in your own way at the last second. This is the moment you receive it. This is the moment heaven delivers what has been prepared, withheld for the right time, and is now being released with full divine authority into every dimension of your existence. You are chosen. You are seen. You are known. And what is about to hit your life is going to prove every single one of those truths in a way that leaves you completely undone and completely free. Do not move. Do not look away. God is not finished speaking. Type "I am ready" in the comments right now if you can feel this word landing in your spirit. If something is moving in you right now, if you feel even the faintest stirring of recognition as you hear these words, I want you to know that someone else, somewhere in the world right now, sit exactly where you are sitting and feeling exactly what you are feeling. They need this message just as much as you do. If this has touched something real in you, would you consider pressing like so? These words can find their way to the next person who needs to be named and seen today. Leave something in the comments, even just one word, because your voice here becomes part of a community of chosen ones speaking into the silence together, reminding each other that no one is walking this road alone. If you know someone who has been quietly carrying the weight of being underestimated, share this with them, because that single act might be the exact moment their season turns. And if you want to stay close to what is being built here, subscribe so the next message finds you without you having to search for it. In the pinned comment below, there is also a donation link. And if you feel moved to pass the light forward, that is simply a way of reaching the next chosen one who cannot yet afford to find their way here. You are under no obligation. Take what you need from this message and carry it with you. In just a moment, we are going to go much deeper. The 7 minutes of silence you just practiced is the very thing I briefly touched on when I mentioned Dr. James Rivers and the genius wave. It is time to give you the full picture of what that frequency is, what it does, and why it matters specifically for a chosen one in the season you are entering right now. You were never meant to blend in. From the very first moment you arrived in this world, something about you was different, and you felt it before you ever had the words to describe it. You looked around at the people in your life and understood, even as a child, that you were operating on a frequency that most others around you could not quite tune into. That awareness was not arrogance. It was not pride. It was the quiet, persistent signal of a divine mark that God placed on your life before you were ever born. A mark that no amount of rejection or misunderstanding or deliberate erasure could ever remove. The world has a way of making people like you feel like the problem. When you see deeper than the surface, when you feel things more intensely than those around you, when your spirit rises up against injustice and your heart breaks for what breaks the heart of God, people do not always celebrate that in you. More often, they are unsettled by it. They try to shrink you, silence you, and reshape you into something more manageable. Something that does not make them examine their own lives too closely. And because you wanted to belong, because you are human, and the desire for acceptance runs deep, there were seasons where you tried to make yourself smaller. You tried to dim the light that God placed inside you so that the people around you would feel more comfortable. But here is what God is declaring over you today. Every single attempt to diminish you failed. Every word spoken to make you feel ordinary missed the mark, because you are not ordinary and you never were. The rejection you experienced was never proof that you were too much. It was proof that what God placed inside you was too significant to be contained by environments and relationships that were never designed to hold it. You were not rejected because you were flawed beyond recovery. You were separated because you were called beyond what those around you could see. The Bible makes this clear in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 1, verse 5, where God says, "Before I formed you in the womb I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." That verse is not just ancient poetry written for someone else. It is a living declaration being spoken over your life right now. You were set apart, not as an afterthought, not as a secondary plan after something else fell through. You were specifically, intentionally, and lovingly set apart before your story even began. This is why the road has been harder for you than it seemed to be for others. You were not handed a life of ease, because ease does not produce what God is trying to build in you. The pressure you have endured has been the very force shaping that heaven intends to display. The years of feeling like an outsider were not punishment. They were protection and preparation, and the slow and deliberate sculpting of a vessel strong enough to carry what God is about to place inside it. You were made to stand out. You were made to carry something rare, and everything that tried to convince you otherwise was simply wrong. Type "I was set apart" in the comments if this is speaking to your spirit right now. What I briefly mentioned earlier in this message, I want to give you the full picture of it now, because you have earned the right to understand what has actually been happening inside you during these years of waiting, and why the science of it is just as sacred as the spiritual reality of it. Let me say this first, and I want you to receive it as a direct confirmation before anything else. You are not broken. You have never been broken. What you have been experiencing, the fog, the fatigue, the sense that your mind is working against you instead of with you, the way clarity seems to arrive and then slip away before you can hold on to it. None of that is evidence of a flaw in your design. It is evidence of a frequency that has been suppressed by the weight of a season that asked more of you than most people will ever be asked to give. And that distinction matters more than I can say, because the moment you stop treating yourself as someone who is damaged and start treating yourself as someone whose signal has been temporarily dimmed, everything about how you move forward begins to change. Here is what the researchers have found, and I want to walk you through it slowly because it deserves to be understood, not just believed. Every chosen one carries a specific frequency. It is not a metaphor. It is measurable. Scientists who study the electrical activity of the brain have identified a range of brainwaves called gamma, operating at a frequency of roughly 30 to 100 hertz. And what they have found in their research is both remarkable and deeply confirming for people like you. Gamma waves are associated with the highest states of cognitive function. They are present during moments of sudden insight, during deep states of spiritual awareness, during creative breakthroughs, during the kind of clarity that feels like it comes from somewhere beyond ordinary thinking. They are the frequency of what some researchers have called the eureka moment, the frequency of the mind operating at its most whole. And the extraordinary thing, the thing that stopped Dr. James Rivers in the middle of his research and redirected over 30 years of his scientific life, is this: chosen ones. People who carry a strong sense of divine purpose and a heightened sensitivity to the spiritual dimension of life show unusually elevated gamma activity when they are operating in alignment with their calling. The frequency is native to them. It is part of how they were designed to function. Dr. Rivers has spent over 3 decades studying the brain in research context affiliated with both MIT and NASA. And the question that drove his work was not simply what gamma waves are, but what suppresses them. What takes a mind built for this kind of elevated function and dims it down to the point where the person carrying it begins to wonder whether they imagined their own potential? What he found was this: long seasons of unresolved grief, prolonged isolation, sustained emotional suppression, the kind of quiet, invisible carrying that chosen ones are asked to do for years, and sometimes decades. These experiences do not destroy the gamma frequency, but they do layer over it. They create what Dr. Rivers described as a kind of neurological sediment, accumulated weight that sits between the person and their own highest function. The capacity is still there. The design is still intact, but the access has been buried under the residue of a season. that cost at more than anyone around that person could see. This is what you have been living inside of, not a diminished version of yourself. The full version of yourself temporarily buried under the weight of what you have carried. And the reason I am telling you this is because what Dr. Rivers built is designed for exactly this. Not to give you something you do not have, but to uncover what has always been there. He called it the Genius Wave. The Genius Wave is a precisely engineered 7-minute audio experience that works through a principle called brainwave entrainment. Here is how it works, simply and without unnecessary complexity. Your brain, like any responsive system, will naturally synchronize with a dominant external frequency when that frequency is presented in the right way. This is not speculation. It is a neurological phenomenon that has been documented in peer-reviewed research for decades. When you listen to the Genius Wave through headphones, the audio delivers carefully calibrated sound frequencies that guide your brain gently and without effort out of the suppressed, sediment-covered state it has been functioning in and back toward the gamma and theta frequencies where your natural clarity, creativity, and spiritual receptivity live. Theta waves, operating at 4 to 8 Hz, are the frequency of deep intuition, rapid learning, and the kind of open, receptive state where new understanding can arrive without being blocked by analytical resistance. They are the frequency children operate in naturally, which is part of why children learn so quickly and sense things so easily. And gamma, as I have already described, is the frequency of your highest function, your sharpest insight, your clearest knowing. 7 minutes a day is all it asks. Not because 7 minutes is a magic number, but because Dr. Rivers found through his research that 7 minutes is the optimal window for entrainment to occur without overstimulating the nervous system. Long enough to shift the frequency, short enough to integrate without fatigue. And I want to connect this directly to the 7 minutes of practice I invited you into at the end of part 1. Because that silence you just sat in was not random. That was your nervous system being given permission to stop performing and start receiving. The Genius Wave simply takes that opening and deepens it with precision. I want to tell you about someone who found this when they were in a season that sounds very much like yours. Her name was Patricia, and she had spent 4 years in what she described as a spiritual fog. She had been faithful. She had served. She had prayed. But something in her had gone quiet in a way she could not reverse by trying harder. She began using the Genius Wave the same week, she said. She had nearly given up on the idea that her mind would ever feel clear again. By the 3rd week, she described waking up one morning with what she called a map. Not a literal map, but a sudden, complete sense of the next step in front of her that she had not been able to access in years. She said it felt like a frequency she had been trying to reach through a wall of static, and suddenly the static was gone. Patricia is not an anomaly. She is a pattern. Now I want to speak honestly to the part of you that is calculating right now, because I know some of you are thinking that $39 is not nothing. And I want to say clearly, that feeling is completely valid. You have spent years being careful with what you have because you have had to be. You have watched resources feel thin while you waited for the shift that was promised. I am not asking you to dismiss that reality. I am asking you to hold it alongside this one, the cost of one more month, one more year of your highest capacity being buried under the sediment of a season that is now ending. That cost is not small either. The Genius Wave is normally priced at $49. Through the link in the pinned comment below, you can access it today for just $39. That link also comes with a 90-day money-back guarantee. which means you have 3 full months to experience what changes, and if nothing does, you pay nothing. There is no risk in that. There is only the question of whether you are ready to stop waiting for your clarity to return on its own and choose to actively reclaim it. One critical thing I need to say before we move forward: there are imitations appearing in various places online that claim to offer the same experience at a lower price or through different channels. Please do not be taken in by them. The authentic genius wave, the one built on Dr. Rivers' 30 years of research, calibrated to the exact specifications his work identified, is available through one link only: the single link in the pinned comment below. Any other version is not the same product and will not produce the same results. Protect yourself by going only to that link. I also want to be honest with you about availability. The current pricing of $39 is not permanent. Dr. Rivers made a decision to offer the product at this price for a limited window specifically because he believed this season was one where chosen ones needed access without an additional barrier. When that window closes, the price returns to $49. If something in you says yes while you are sitting here, I encourage you to honor that response rather than delay it. Now, what I want to do in the part of this message that follows is go deeper into what you have actually been experiencing on the inside of this season. Because there are things you have been feeling that no one around you has had the precise language to name. And I believe that when those things are finally named, something in you is going to exhale in a way it has not been able to for a very long time. You have passed something, chosen one, something real and something significant. And it is time for you to understand exactly what that something was, because the weight of a test you do not yet fully recognize is a weight you will carry longer than you need to. What I am about to give you is the language for what you have been living. And that language is the beginning of something being released in you that has been waiting to move for a very long time. There is a particular kind of pain that comes with waiting, and it is unlike any other suffering you will encounter in this life. It is not the sharp, sudden pain of loss that crashes over you all at once and then slowly recedes. It is not the burning pain of betrayal that ignites and then gradually cools with time. The pain of waiting is different. It is low, steady, and relentless. It is the kind of pain that does not announce itself loudly, but instead settles into your bones and becomes the background noise of every single day. It is the pain of a person who has been promised something by God, who has felt the reality of that promise burning in their chest like a living flame, and who then wakes up morning after morning to a world that looks exactly the same as it did the day before. You know this pain. You have lived inside it. There were seasons where the silence of heaven felt so complete that you began to wonder if the voice you heard was real at all. You prayed, and the ceiling felt like concrete. You fasted, and nothing shifted. You worshipped through tears and went home to the same circumstances, the same limitations, the same closed doors that had refused to open no matter how many times you knocked. And somewhere in that long, aching corridor of waiting, a question began to form that you were almost too afraid to speak out loud. God, have you forgotten about me? He has not forgotten you. He has never forgotten you. And what looked like abandonment from where you were standing was actually something so much more intentional, so much more purposeful, and so much more loving than your natural mind could have perceived in the middle of it. What you experienced in that silence was not God turning away from you. It was God turning toward you with a level of attention and care so profound that he refused to release what was coming until every single piece of the preparation was complete. Because what is on its way to you is not a small thing that can be dropped into an unprepared life without consequence. It is massive, and massive things require massive preparation. Think about what happens in the natural world before something of great magnitude occurs. Before a harvest, there is a long season of invisible growth beneath the surface where nothing appears to be happening from the outside. But underground, in the dark and in the silence, roots are driving deeper, nutrients are being drawn up, and life is organizing itself with stunning precision. Before a building of great height can rise into the sky, there must first be an excavation, a digging down into the earth that looks, to anyone watching, like destruction rather than construction. Before a diamond can be placed in a crown, it must first endure an almost incomprehensible amount of pressure, applied over an almost incomprehensible amount of time. The silence you have been living in was not the absence of God. It was the presence of God doing something in you and around you that simply could not be seen with the natural eye. The prophet Isaiah carried the words of God in chapter 40, verse 31, declaring that those who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Notice that the renewing, the mounting up, the running without weariness, none of it comes first. It all comes after the waiting. The waiting is not the punishment that precedes the reward. The waiting is the process that produces the capacity to carry the reward without being destroyed by it. You needed to wait not because God was withholding, but because God was building in you a depth of character, a strength of spirit, and a rootedness in faith that could sustain the weight of what He was preparing to place on your shoulders. And here is something that the enemy absolutely did not want you to understand during those long, silent seasons. The waiting was not passive. Even when you felt like you were doing nothing, even when it seemed like your faith had no visible effect on your circumstances, heaven was extraordinarily active on your behalf. Every prayer you offered in those quiet rooms was received. Every tear that fell from your eyes was collected. Every act of faithfulness you performed when you had no external reason to be faithful was registered in the courts of heaven and credited to your account. Nothing you did in obedience during your season of waiting was wasted, not one moment of it. God was keeping a record, and He was building a case, and He was preparing an answer that would not just meet your need, but would silence every voice, including your own, that ever dared to suggest He had forgotten you. The silence also served another purpose that you could not have seen while you were inside it. It was a filtering process. There are things, mindsets, attachments, dependencies, fears, and false identities that could not be allowed to travel with you into what God has prepared. And the only way to release those things was through the pressure of the waiting season. Things that were not rooted in God could not survive the sustained weight of that silence. Old versions of yourself that needed to die so that the true you could emerge had to be stripped away through the process of endurance. The waiting was not just preparing you for the blessing. It was preparing you to be the kind of person who could handle the blessing without being corrupted by it, without losing your grounding in God once the abundance arrived, without forgetting where you came from when the elevation came. There is also this truth that must be spoken over you today. The length of your waiting is directly proportional to the magnitude of what is coming. Short seasons of waiting precede modest shifts. Extended seasons of waiting precede massive moves of God. If your waiting has been long, if the silence has stretched on in ways that tested every limit of your endurance, then what that tells you is not that you have been forgotten or overlooked or passed by. What it tells you is that what is coming is so significant, so large, so transformational, that heaven needed the full length of that time to set everything in order. You have not been waiting because you are last in line. You have been waiting because what is prepared for you is so specific, so precisely tailored to who you are and what your purpose demands, that it simply could not be rushed. You may have watched others around you receive their breakthroughs and felt the sting of wondering when your moment would come. You may have celebrated others with your mouth while your heart quietly ached for your own answer. God sees that. He sees the generosity of spirit you maintained even in your own scarcity. He sees the way you continued to rejoice for others even when your own need was pressing against you like a weight, and He is honoring that right now. The same way He turned the captivity of Job after Job prayed for his friends. God is turning the tide of your story at this very moment, and He is doing it with a comprehensiveness and a thoroughness that will leave nothing untouched. The silence is ending. The season of waiting is completing its final chapter. What felt like ceiling above your prayers was not a ceiling at all, but a door. And that door is being opened right now by the hand of a God who specializes in doing things at exactly the right moment, never too early, never too late, but always precisely on time. What is coming will not arrive with an apology for how long it took. It will arrive with the full force of heaven behind it. And when it lands in your life, you will understand why every moment of waiting was necessary. And you will be grateful, not in spite of the waiting, but because of what the waiting produced in you. Do not despise the season you have just come through. Carry it with you as a testimony. The silent survived is about to become the story that sets someone else free. Now, in the middle of all that heaven is declaring over you, something needs to be said about what you have access to right now, in this season, to help you operate at the level your calling requires. Because a chosen one who is spiritually clear but cognitively foggy, who carries a divine assignment, but cannot access the mental clarity and creative frequency needed to execute it, is like a torchbearer who has been given a flame, but not the strength to hold it up. The genius wave, which was introduced in the last section, is not just a wellness product. In the context of everything being said about you in the unseen realm, it is a tool for frequency restoration. It is the 7 minutes a day that brings your mind back into alignment with the theta and gamma states that chosen ones were designed to operate in. The link to access it at $39 with a full 90-day guarantee is in the pinned comment and in the description below. If that word landed in your spirit, do not let the moment pass without acting on it. And now, something that comes from a place of complete honesty, because you deserve that. This channel does not earn revenue from the platform the way many others do. These messages, the time and the heart and the care that goes into preparing every word that reaches you, are not supported by the system in the way you might assume. But the work continues because the calling on this message is real, and the people it is reaching, people like you, are worth every moment invested in it. If what you have heard in these sections has reached something in you, if these words have found the places that needed to be found, and you want to play a part in making sure that more chosen ones can find their way to this message, there is a way to do that. The donate link is in the pinned comment and in the description below. Whatever you are able to give, even the smallest amount, goes directly into keeping this ministry moving forward and these messages reaching the people who need them. You are not just supporting a channel when you give. You are extending the reach of a word that is already changing lives. If this message is resonating with you, take 3 seconds right now to hit the like button. It is a small gesture that carries real weight because it tells the platform that this kind of content matters and it opens the door for more chosen ones to find their way here. And if you are not in a semen where giving financially is possible, that is completely understood and completely fine. Watch to the end. Leave a comment below telling us what this is stirring in you. Share this video with one person in your life who is carrying a sense of unfinished purpose and does not yet have the language for what they are feeling. Subscribing so that every new message finds its way to you is itself an act of partnership in what is being built here. Every view, every comment, every share is a form of support that matters more than you know, and we receive it with genuine gratitude. You need to understand something about the opposition you have faced, because the enemy never wastes energy on someone who does not matter. Think about that for a moment and let it settle deep into your spirit. The attacks were not random. The setbacks were not coincidental. The timing of every disruption, every distraction, every carefully placed obstacle that appeared at exactly the wrong moment in your life, none of it was accidental. There is an intelligence behind darkness, and that intelligence had already calculated what you carry before you fully understood it yourself. The reason the resistance in your life has been so persistent, so relentless, so personally targeted is because what God placed inside you represents a direct and catastrophic threat to every plan the enemy has built in your generation. Before you dismiss that as spiritual language designed to make you feel better about difficult seasons, hear this truth with complete clarity. The enemy does not attack everything equally. He does not spend his limited influence on lives that pose no threat to his agenda. He is strategic, calculated, and deeply intentional about where he directs his most concentrated opposition. And if you look back honestly at the story of your life, if you trace the pattern of attacks that came against your mind, your relationships, your provision, your health, and your peace, you will begin to recognize something that should shift everything about how you see yourself. The level of warfare you have survived is the clearest possible indicator of the level of destiny you carry. Ordinary lives do not attract extraordinary opposition. Ordinary potential does not require extraordinary resistance. The darkness that has pushed against you with such force and such persistence was not reacting to what you have already done. It was reacting to what it could already see that you were about to do. The enemy operates in the realm of the spiritual, and in that realm, your assignment has always been visible, even when you could not see it yourself. Every time he sent something to destroy you, and it did not work. Every time he positioned someone to speak death over your future, and those words fell to the ground without taking root. Every time the plan to derail your destiny was executed with precision and still somehow failed, that was not luck. That was the hand of God covering what he had already declared belonged to the kingdom. Think about the specific timing of attacks in your life. Have you noticed how opposition tends to intensify right before a breakthrough? Have you observed how the most devastating hits often came at the exact moment you were on the edge of stepping into something new? That pattern is not coincidence, and it is not your imagination. When the enemy senses movement in your life, when he detects that heaven is about to shift something in your favor, his response is to escalate. He accelerates his agenda because he is working on borrowed time, and he knows it. The pressure you felt in those moments was the spiritual equivalent of a cornered adversary throwing everything available in a desperate attempt to prevent what was already written from coming to pass. But here is what the enemy did not account for, and what God needs you to receive with absolute certainty right now. You are still here. After everything that came against you, after every coordinated assault on your future night when it seemed like the darkness was winning, you are still standing. That is not a small thing. That is not something to gloss over and move past quickly on your way to the next point. You, being here right now, reading these words, breathing, believing, holding on to faith even when it felt like the thinnest thread imaginable, that is a testament to a protective covering over your life that no force on earth or beneath it has been able to penetrate. You survived what was designed to eliminate you, and that survival is itself a declaration of your divine protection and your unbreakable assignment. The Word of God declares in Isaiah chapter 54, verse 17, that no weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against you in judgment you shall condemn. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord. Notice that it does not say no weapon will be formed. It says no weapon formed will prosper. The formation of weapons against your life is acknowledged. The attacks are real. The opposition is genuine, but the outcome is already settled. The verdict was rendered in your favor before the battle even began, and the darkness has been fighting a losing war against your destiny. From the very first moment, it recognized what you were called to carry. There is also something deeply significant about the particular nature of the attacks that have come against you. They were not generic. They were personalized. They targeted your specific areas of weakness, your specific areas of gifting, and your specific areas of calling. An attack on your mind was designed to make you doubt the clarity of your purpose. An attack on your relationships was designed to isolate you from the people who would have strengthened and affirmed your calling. An attack on your provision was designed to create a fear of scarcity that would keep your attention earthward rather than heaven-focused. Every category of warfare you have experienced was a carefully selected instrument aimed at the specific areas where your greatest strength and your greatest assignment intersect. And in case you have ever felt shame or confusion about the intensity of what you have walked through, God is releasing you from that burden right now. The warfare was not a sign of your spiritual weakness. It was a sign of your spiritual significance. The most targeted servants in the kingdom have always been the ones carrying the most critical assignments. Moses faced Pharaoh. David faced Goliath. Joseph faced the pit, the false accusation, and the prison. Paul faced shipwrecks, beatings, and imprisonment. In every case, the intensity of the opposition was directly proportional to the magnitude of what God was preparing them to carry and to release into the earth. You are in good company, and your story is following the same pattern that heaven has used throughout history to prepare its most significant vessels. What you need to carry forward from this moment is not bitterness toward the attacks and not fear of future opposition. What you need to carry forward is the knowledge that everything that came against you was already defeated before it arrived, and everything that is coming for you has already been secured before it reaches your hands. The enemy feared what you would discover about yourself, because a chosen one who fully understands their authority is a chosen one that darkness cannot contain. You are discovering it now. You are walking into the fullness of that revelation, and as you do, the warfare behind you is losing its grip, and the victory ahead of you is becoming clearer with every single step. Type, "I am protected," and "I am powerful" in the comments if this word is confirming what God has already been speaking to your spirit. There is a moment in every chosen life where everything converges. The pain, the preparation, the silence, the warfare, all of it rushes together into a single point, so concentrated and so intense that the person standing inside it cannot always recognize what is actually happening. From the inside, it feels like the end. It feels like collapse. It feels like every wall you have been holding up with the last of your strength is finally giving way, and there is nothing left to stop the falling. But what God needs you to hear right now, what heaven is declaring over you with absolute certainty and divine authority, is that what felt like your breaking point was never the end of your story. It was the turning point. It was the precise moment that everything you had been holding on to in the wrong hands was being released so that the right hands, the hands of a God who holds the universe in place, could take over completely. You have been there. You know what that moment feels like. Maybe it came after a loss so devastating that you could not find the words to pray anymore and simply sat in the wreckage of what used to be your life, wondering how God could allow something so painful to reach you after everything you had already been through. Maybe it came after a betrayal that blindsided you from a direction you never expected, from someone you trusted completely, from a relationship you had invested your most vulnerable and precious self into. Maybe it came after a financial collapse, a health report, a door slammed so finally and so completely that it felt like the universe itself was confirming your worst fear, that you had been wrong about everything, that the promises were not for you, that the future you had believed for was nothing more than a beautiful illusion that was never going to materialize. And in that moment, in the dust and the silence and the wreckage, you made a choice. You may not have recognized it as a choice at the time, because choices made in the darkest moments rarely feel significant when you are still inside the darkness. But you chose to stay. You chose not to walk away from God even when God felt impossibly far away. You chose to hold on to a faith that had no evidence left to support it, except the stubborn, inexplicable fire in your spirit that refused to go out, no matter how hard the wind blew against it. That choice, that single act of bruised and battered faithfulness in the lowest moment of your journey, is the very thing that heaven is now honoring in a way that will rewrite everything you thought you understood about how God moves. The Word of God speaks to this reality in a passage that carries weight far beyond its brevity. In the book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 28, the declaration is made that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to His purpose. All things, not some things, not the comfortable things, not the things that made sense at the time and seemed to be moving your story in the right direction. All things, including the things that broke you, including the things that made no sense whatsoever when they were happening, including the things you prayed would never touch your life and that touched it anyway. God did not cause every painful thing that entered your story, but He made a covenant, promised that He would take every single one of those things and weave them together into something that ultimately serves the purpose He declared over your life before you were born. This is what Joseph understood from the pit. When his brothers stripped him of his coat and threw him into a hole in the ground and sold him to strangers, Joseph could not have seen what God was weaving. When he was falsely accused by Potiphar's wife and thrown into prison for something he did not do, he could not have mapped the journey from that cell to the palace. But years later, standing before the very brothers who had betrayed him, positioned at the right hand of Pharaoh with the authoritative nations, Joseph made a declaration that still echoes through the centuries. He said to his brothers, "You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good. Not you meant it for evil, and God tolerated it. Not you meant it for evil, and God eventually cleaned up the mess. You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good." God was operating with an entirely different intention than the enemy, and God's intention was the one that prevailed. Your breaking point was God's turning point. The moment the enemy thought he had finally finished you was the moment. Heaven activated the next phase of your story. This is not poetic language designed to make suffering feel more palatable. This is the literal operating principle of a God who has never lost a single battle and who has never allowed the enemy to have the final word over a life that is surrendered to his purpose. Everything the darkness threw at you was intercepted, redirected, and repurposed by a God whose creativity and sovereignty are infinite. The pit you were thrown into was the same pit that put you in position for the palace. The prison you endured was the same prison that brought you to the attention of the one who would open the door to your destiny. And there is something else. The breaking point did not just turn your story, it transformed you. The person who walked into that valley of devastation and the person who walked out of it are not the same person. You may not be able to fully see the difference yet because you are still close to the experience. But there are people in your future who will see it immediately. They will see a depth in your eyes that can only be purchased through genuine suffering. They will hear an authority in your voice that only comes from a person who has been to the bottom and found God faithful, even there. They will feel a compassion in your presence that cannot be manufactured or performed because it was forged in the fire of your own pain and emerged refined and real and ready to reach the lives of people who need exactly what you now carry. The breaking point produced something in you that comfort never could have produced. It produced a faith that is not theoretical, not inherited, not borrowed from someone else's testimony, but personal and proven and tested at the deepest level. It produced a resilience that does not come from self-help or positive thinkings, but from the lived experience of being sustained by God through something that should have destroyed you and did not. It produced a perspective that keeps you grounded when the blessings come, because you know with complete certainty that the blessings are not the foundation. God is the foundation. And that knowledge was purchased through the breaking, and it is priceless, and it will protect everything that is coming into your life from being mishandled or taken for granted. So when God says to you today that what you are about to receive is massive, He is not just speaking about external circumstances changing. He is speaking about a chosen one who has been through the fire and come out on the other side carrying gold. He's speaking about a vessel that has been tested and proven and is now ready to hold what heaven has been preparing to pour. The breaking point was not where your story ended. It was where your real story began. And everything that is coming in, the next chapter of your life, is going to bear the unmistakable fingerprints of a God who takes broken things and makes them more beautiful and more powerful than they ever were before the breaking came. Type, God turned it around in the comments if you know in your spirit that what the enemy meant for your destruction has been assigned by heaven for your transformation. You have carried the word massive in your spirit since the opening of this message. And now God needs you to understand what He actually means when He uses that word. Because the human mind has a tendency to shrink divine language down to the size of its own experience. When you hear the word massive, your natural mind immediately begins to calculate. It searches through the catalog of the biggest things you have ever seen or experienced and uses those as a measuring stick. Maybe massive means a financial breakthrough that pays off your debt. Maybe massive means a relationship restored or a door open to a career you have prayed about for years. Maybe massive means a healing in your body or a prodigal child finally coming home. And while God is absolutely moving in every one of those areas of your life, He is standing before you right now asking you to expand your capacity for what He is actually capable of releasing. Because what He has prepared for you does not fit inside the measurements your past experience has established. It is beyond the grid. It is outside the categories. It is larger than the largest version of blessing your mind has dared to imagine. The Word of God speaks to this directly in the book of Ephesians, chapter 3, verse 20, where the declaration is made that God is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that you ask or think, according to the power that works in you. Read that again slowly, and let every word land with its full weight. Exceedingly abundantly above all that you ask or think, not slightly above, not a modest improvement on your best prayer. Exceedingly abundantly above the ceiling of your greatest imagination. God is not limited by what you have been able to conceive. He is not constrained by what you have previously received. He is not capped by the size of your faith or the smallness of your history. He operates in a dimension of provision and purpose that the human mind cannot fully contain, and what He is releasing into your life right now, it's coming from that dimension, not from the one you have been living in. So when God says massive, He means every area of your life simultaneously. Not one blessing while another area remains in lack. Not healing in your body while your relationships remain broken. Not financial provision while your peace is still held hostage by anxiety and fear. When heaven releases a massive move of God over a chosen life, it does not arrive in parts, scheduled and rationed, out over time like a subscription service. It arrives as a complete and comprehensive act of divine sovereignty that touches everything at once. Your finances and your family, your health and your purpose, your identity and your peace, your gifting and your relationships. Every dimension of your existence that has been under pressure, under attack, or held in a season of lack is being addressed in a single sweeping act of heaven that is being released over your life right now. This is important for you to receive because the enemy has spent considerable effort convincing you that you have to choose. He has whispered to you that maybe you can have provision but not peace. Maybe you can have purpose but not people. Maybe you can have success in one area if you are willing to accept continued lack in another. That is a lie that was designed to keep you managing your expectations downward, to keep you grateful for partial blessings while God was prepared to release the fullness all along. The God who created everything from nothing does not operate in the economy of scarcity. He does not have to rob Peter to pay Paul in your life. He does not have a limited supply that requires rationing. What He is releasing is flowing from an unlimited, inexhaustible source, and it is more than enough to saturate every single corner of the life He designed for you. Think about the nature of God that is revealed throughout Scripture, and you will see this pattern repeated again and again. When Jesus fed 5,000 people on a hillside, He did not give everyone a small portion and ask them to be satisfied. He fed everyone until they were full, and then there were 12 baskets of fragments left over. When God provided manna in the wilderness, He did not give the Israelites just enough to survive. He gave them precisely what each person needed, exactly when they needed it, for 40 years without interruption. When Solomon asked God for wisdom, God did not give him only wisdom. He gave him wisdom and added wealth and honor and long life beyond what Solomon even requested. This is the nature of the God who is moving on your behalf right now. He does not give minimums, He gives maximums. He does not provide just enough. He provides abundantly more than enough. And the word massive also carries a dimension that extends beyond your personal life into the lives of everyone connected to you. A massive move of God in a chosen life is never isolated. It creates ripples. It generates waves that reach further than the immediate recipient can even track. When God broke the chains of Joseph, It was not just Joseph who was freed. An entire generation was saved from famine because of the position God placed Joseph in. When God gave David victory over Goliath, it was not just one man who celebrated. An entire nation was delivered from the paralysis of fear and the threat of Philistine domination. When God raised Lazarus from the dead, it was not just one family that was transformed. Many who witnessed that miracle believed. The massive blessing God is releasing over your life is carrying within it the seeds of impact that will stretch far beyond what you can currently see, touching lives and creating testimonies that you have not yet imagined. This is why you cannot afford to receive this blessing with a small mind. You cannot afford to allow the limitations of your past experience to become the ceiling of what God is trying to do. You have to consciously and deliberately expand your capacity to receive. You have to allow your faith to stretch beyond the borders of what feels safe and familiar into the territory where God actually operates. That kind of faith requires courage because it means believing for things that your natural circumstances have given you no reason to believe for. It means holding in your spirit the image of what God has promised, even when everything around you is still telling a different story. It means living from the reality of heaven before the reality of heaven has fully manifested in the natural world around you. Massive is the word heaven is using, and it is the right word, and it is not being used loosely. What is coming into your life is going to redefine your understanding of what God is capable of, what you are capable of, and what the two of you together are capable of when you walk in full alignment with the purpose He declared over your life before you were born. If that stirs something in you, press like on this message, not as a favor to this channel, but as a chosen one saying, yes, I am part of this movement. And I want the next person who needs to find it to be able to reach it. Drop a word in the comments. Any word, as a signal to every other chosen one watching that they are not in this room alone. And if someone is on your heart right now, someone who is still in the thick of their waiting season and needs to hear that the ground is already shifting, share this with them today, because your willingness to pass this forward is itself an act of the purpose that is waking up in you. Stay at the table by subscribing, because what is coming next in this series was made for exactly the person you are becoming. And if you feel moved to sow into this ground so that the next chosen one who arrives here finds the same thing you found, the link in the pinned comment is where you can extend what has been given to you. If you feel in your spirit that what I have described is not just possible but already in motion, I want to invite you to type the word receive in the comments. Not as a declaration of what you are hoping for, as an acknowledgement of what you are already stepping into. Because the three things I described are not on their way. They are already moving, and a chosen one who has been assembled the way you have been assembled is more than ready to meet them. Everything that has been poured into you through the seasons of silence, the battles you survived, the breaking points that became turning points, and the preparation that happened in the hidden places where no one else could see, all of it was never just for you. There's always been something more written into the blueprint of your life than personal comfort and private blessing. God did not choose you simply to give you a better life. He chose you to make you a carrier, a vessel, a living demonstration of what He is capable of doing with a life that is fully surrendered to His purpose. What is coming to you is massive, not only because of what it will do in your life, but because of what it will do through your life once it arrives. This is the part of the story that the enemy fought the hardest to prevent you from reaching. He was not simply trying to stop your blessing. He was trying to stop your assignment. because your assignment reaches further than your personal story ever could. There are people in your life right now, people in your family, people in your community, people you have not yet met and may not meet for years, who are connected to what God is releasing through you. Their freedom, their healing, their encounter with the love and power of God. All of it is waiting on the other side of your obedience. All of it is tied to the mantle that heaven is placing on your shoulders in this season. You are not just a recipient of grace, you are a distributor of it, and the magnitude of what is coming is directly proportional to the magnitude of what God intends to release through you into the lives of those He has assigned to your journey. The Word of God makes this clear throughout Scripture in a pattern that repeats so consistently it cannot be dismissed. Abraham was blessed so that he would be a blessing to every family on the earth. Joseph was elevated not for his own comfort, but so that nations could be saved from destruction. Esther was positioned in the palace not so that she could enjoy royal privilege, but so that an entire people could be delivered from annihilation. Ruth was restored not so that she could have a good life, but so that the lineage of the Messiah could run through her story. Every massive move of God in the life of a chosen one has always carried within it a purpose that extended far beyond the individual into generations, nations, and eternities that the individual could not fully see at the time they were living it. You are living inside that same pattern right now. The blessing that is coming to you is loaded with purpose that reaches beyond what your natural eye can see. The financial provision that is being released is not just so that your needs are met. It carries within it the seed money for an assignment God has already written. The restoration that is coming to your family is not just so that you can enjoy peace in your home. It is so that your home can become a refuge and a testimony that draws others into the presence of God. The healing that is being released into your body is not just so that you feel well. It is so that you can carry the physical stamina required to fulfill every dimension of what heaven has called you to accomplish. And this is why the weight of what you carry has sometimes felt like more than a personal burden. Because it was never only personal. Every prayer you have prayed over other people, every time you interceded for someone else, even while your own need was pressing against you, every act of generosity you offered from a place of scarcity, because something in your spirit compelled you to give, even when you felt you had nothing left. All of it was you operating in the early stages of the assignment that God is now about to bring into its fullness. You were practicing the nature of a distributor of grace long before the full measure of that grace arrived in your own life. And God has seen every moment of it. There is a divine exchange that is initiating in this season. Everything you poured out when you had very little is now being returned to you multiplied and with interest. The seeds of faithfulness you planted in seasons of scarcity are coming to harvest. Not a small harvest that barely covers what was sown, but a harvest so large that it will take time to bring it all in. A harvest that will leave you with more than enough to meet every need of your assignment and to bless everyone connected to your life and your calling. This is how the kingdom operates. You cannot outgive God, and you cannot outserve God. Whatever was sown in faithfulness in secret, in the dark seasons where nobody was watching except heaven, is coming back to you now with a divine multiplication that only God could orchestrate. The assignment attached to your blessing also means that you will need to remain grounded as the shift unfolds. Elevation carries its own challenges. Abundance carries its own tests. There will be moments in the coming season where you will need to remember that everything flowing into your life is a resource for the assignment, not just a reward for the suffering. The temptation to turn inward, to build walls of self-protection after a lifetime of vulnerability and pain, will be real. Temptation to hoard what God gives you after years of scarcity will knock at the door of your heart. But you already have something that will guard you against those temptations. You have been through enough to know that nothing in this life holds its value unless it is connected to God's purpose. You have been emptied enough to understand that the filling was never just about you, and that understanding is a gift that the breaking point produced in you that comfort never could have. So receive what is coming with open hands and an open heart. Receive it knowing that it is seed as much as it is harvest. Receive it knowing that God trusted you with it, because He already knows what you will do with it. He already sees the lives that will be touched through your testimony, through your generosity, through your willingness to be used as a channel of heaven rather than a container of blessing. You are not just receiving a life upgrade. You are stepping into the fullness of a divine assignment that was written for you before the foundation of the world, and that has been waiting for exactly this moment in your story to be activated and released. Type "I am a channel of heaven" in the comments right now if you receive the understanding that what is coming through you is greater than what is coming to you. There is a command woven into the title of this message that carries more weight than it may have seemed when you first encountered it, and God needs you to sit with it now in a way that goes deeper than the surface reading. Sit down. Those two words are not a casual suggestion. They are not a gentle recommendation for someone who is feeling a little stressed and might benefit from a moment of rest. They are a sacred instruction issued by a God who knows exactly what posture is required for you to receive everything He is about to release. And the reason He is issuing that instruction right now, in this season, at this precise juncture in your story, is because you have been standing in a striving position for so long that sitting down requires an act of will that is nothing short of courageous. You have been carrying so much for so long. You have been the one who holds things together when everything around you threatens to fall apart. You have been the one who keeps showing up, keeps pushing, keeps finding reserves of strength that should have been exhausted long ago, but somehow kept replenishing just enough to carry you through one more day. You have been praying and planning and positioning and preparing, doing everything within your power to make the breakthrough happen, to force the door open, to manufacture the miracle through the sheer force of your dedication and your faith. And none of that effort was wasted. God saw every moment of it. But He is telling you right now that there are thresholds that is like a striving cannot cross. There is a dimension of what He is releasing that your own hands cannot reach. And in order to receive it, you have to stop reaching and start resting. The concept of divine rest is one of the most misunderstood principles in the entire kingdom of God. When the world hears the word rest, it immediately associates it with inactivity, with giving up, with the kind of passivity that produces nothing and goes nowhere. But that is not the rest that God is calling you into. The rest that God commands is not the absence of faith. It is the fullness of it. It is the place where you have prayed everything you know how to pray, believed everything you know how to believe, and then made the conscious decision to release the outcome completely into the hands of a God whose ability to deliver exceeds anything your effort could produce. It is the rest that comes from trust so complete and so settled that you no longer feel the need to intervene in your own miracle. The Word of God in the book of Psalms chapter 46 verse 10 carries a divine command that speaks directly to this moment in your life. It says, "Be still and know that I am God." Notice the sequence of that instruction. Be still first, and then know. The knowing, the revelation, the understanding of who God is and what He is capable of, all of that flows from the stillness. You cannot fully apprehend the magnitude of what God is doing when you are in constant motion, constantly striving, constantly generating the noise of anxious activity that drowns out the voice of heaven. The stillness is not the reward that comes after the breakthrough. The stillness is the environment that allows the breakthrough to arrive. Think about the posture of some of the greatest moments of divine encounter in Scripture. When Moses encountered God at the burning bush, he was not in the middle of frantic activity. He was tending his flock in the ordinary rhythm of a quiet day when God appeared and spoke. When Elijah heard the voice of God on the mountain, it did not come in the wind, or the earthquake, or the fire, the dramatic and powerful things that should have carried such a significant message. It came in a still, small voice that could only be heard by a man who had finally stopped running and sat down under a tree and admitted that he had nothing left. When Mary sat at the feet of Jesus while her sister Martha was consumed with activity, Jesus declared that Mary had chosen the better part, the part that would not be taken from her. The posture of sitting, of stillness, of holy surrender has always been the posture that positioned chosen ones to receive the fullness of what heaven was carrying. And God is asking you to trust Him enough right now to take that posture deliberately, to sit down in the middle of the uncertainty, to be still in the middle of the unanswered questions, to release your grip on the outcomes you have been white-knuckling for months or years, and allow the God who spoke the world into existence to handle what you could never handle on your own. This is not weakness. This is the highest and most powerful expression of faith you will ever demonstrate, because it requires you to believe that God is good and God is able and God is moving, even when your natural senses are receiving no confirmation of that movement whatsoever. The sitting down that God is commanding is also an act of alignment. When you sit in surrender before God, you are bringing your will into alignment with His. You are declaring that His plan is better than yours, that His timing is wiser than yours, that His methods, even the ones you do not understand, are producing something more significant than anything your own strategy could generate. And in that alignment, something shifts in the spiritual atmosphere around your life. The resistance that has been meeting your striving begins to dissolve because you are no longer trying to force something that only God can open. The anxiety that has been the constant companion of your waiting begins to lift because you have transferred the weight of the outcome to the only one strong enough to carry it. The striving that has been draining your energy and your peace begins to quiet because you have finally accepted what you always knew in your spirit, but found so difficult to live from, that this was never yours to carry alone. So sit down right now, not because nothing matters, not because your situation is not urgent, but because what is coming to you is so large and so perfectly prepared that it simply cannot be caught by running hands and a striving heart. It can only be received by open hands and a surrendered spirit. And the moment you truly sit down, the moment you release the striving and enter the rest, heaven will begin to move in your situation with a speed and a thoroughness that will make every moment of waiting feel like the most necessary investment of your life. Type "I surrender it all" in the comments if you are choosing right now to sit down and trust God completely with everything you have been carrying. Right now, in this very moment, while you are sitting in the stillness that God commanded and receiving the truth that heaven has been speaking over your life throughout this entire message, something is happening that your natural eyes cannot see, but that your spirit can absolutely feel. The invisible realm is in motion. The atmosphere around your life is shifting. Doors that have been sealed for seasons are being unlocked by hands that are not human. Chains that have held your destiny in delay are being broken by a force that no darkness can resist. Angels have been dispatched on your behalf, not because you finally became worthy enough to deserve their attention, but because God gave the order. And when God gives the order, heaven moves without hesitation and without delay. The Word of God in the book of Hebrews, chapter 1, verse 14, asks a question that carries the weight of an answer already given. It asks, "Are they not all ministering spirits sent forth to minister for those who will inherit salvation?" The answer is yes, absolutely and completely yes. The angels of God are not decorative figures reserved for nativity scenes and stained glass windows. They are active, powerful, purposeful beings assigned to serve the heirs of the kingdom. And you are an heir. You are not a distant relative hoping for a small portion of what God has available. You are a child of the Most High God, and the resources of heaven, including its messengers, have been deployed into the circumstances of your life at this exact moment in response to the faithfulness you have demonstrated and the decree that God has spoken over your future. Think about what this means in practical terms. While you were sleeping through the hardest nights of your waiting season, heaven was working. While you were sitting in silence, wondering if your prayers were reaching anyone, angels were moving through the invisible places of your situation, clearing the path, pushing back the resistance, preparing the environment that your blessing needs to land in. While you were doing your best to hold your faith together with hands that were trembling from the sustained weight of hoping for things not yet seen, the armies of heaven were engaged in battle on your behalf, fighting for the breakthrough that you have been believing for, and that is now closer to your life than it has ever been before. There is a story in the second book of Kings, chapter 6, that captures this reality with clarity that will permanently change how you see your situation. The prophet Elisha and his servant were surrounded by an enemy army sent to capture them, and when the servant woke to see the forces arrayed against them, he was filled with fear and cried out asking what they would do. And Elisha, calm with a peace that defied natural explanation, prayed a single prayer asking God to open his servant's eyes. And when the servant looked again, he saw what Elisha had been seeing all along. The mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire surrounding them, an army of heaven so vast and so powerful that the enemy forces were completely outnumbered. The army of God had been there the entire time. The servant simply could not see it until his eyes were opened. Your eyes are being opened right now. What you thought was an empty sky above your situation is filled with the activity of heaven. What you thought was silence surrounding your prayers has actually been the sound of God, coordinating a response so comprehensive and so perfectly timed that it required every moment of the season you have just been through in order to arrive at its maximum impact. You are not alone. You have never been alone. The loneliness you felt in your waiting was real, but it was not the full reality. The full reality is that you have been surrounded, covered, protected, and fought for by a God whose resources are infinite and whose commitment to your destiny is absolute and unbreakable. And now God is releasing those resources into the visible realm of your life. What has been happening in the invisible is about to become undeniable in the natural. The movement that your spirit has been sensing, the anticipation that has been building in your chest, the quiet but persistent knowing that something is on the verge of breaking through, all of it is about to be confirmed by what you begin to see unfolding around you. The answer to the prayer you have prayed the longest is in transit. The door that has been locked for the season you could least explain is in the process of being opened. The provision that seemed impossible, given everything your natural circumstances were communicating, is being released from a supply that has never run low and never will. What God is doing on your behalf right now is not dependent on the economy of the world you live in. It is not limited by the opinions of the people around you. It is not subject to the delays and the bureaucracy and closed systems of a world that does not operate according to kingdom principles. God is moving through channels that have no earthly equivalent. He is opening doors in places that no human hand could reach. He is releasing favor into situations that had been declared impossible by every natural assessment available. He is doing what only He can do, and He is doing it specifically and personally and powerfully for you, because you are His and He is yours, and the covenant between you is unbreakable. So hold your position. Stay in the surrender that God commanded. Stay in the stillness that allows you to receive what is coming without the interference of your own striving. What heaven is delivering to your doorstep does not require your help to arrive. It requires only your faith and your readiness. And you are ready. Everything you have been through has made you ready. Every season of preparation has brought you to a place of readiness that you could not have manufactured on your own. You are positioned exactly where God needs you to be, and what is coming is going to find you there and meet you with a force and a fullness that will take your breath away. Now, as you carry that prayer forward into the practical step that follows it, I want to speak one more time about what is waiting for you in the genius wave, because the prayer and the protocol are not in competition with each other. They are companions. The prayer positions your spirit. The protocol positions your brain. And when both are aligned, when the spirit is oriented toward its source, and the brain is operating at the frequency it was designed for, what becomes possible in a human life exceeds what either the spiritual or the neurological can produce alone. This is the integration that the chosen ones of every generation who operated at their highest capacity understood intuitively, even when they did not have the vocabulary of neuroscience available to them. They prayed and they practiced. They sought and they applied. They positioned themselves spiritually, and they created the daily conditions in which the spiritual positioning could find neurological expression. And the result of that integration was the kind of life that history still talks about centuries after it was lived. You have been given both today: the prayer and the path, the positioning and the protocol. And the only remaining question is the one that has always been the only remaining question for a chosen one standing at a threshold. Will you step through? The link in the pinned comment is there for you. It leads directly to the legitimate, verified source of the genius wave, the only place where Dr. Rivers' precise engineering is available in its authentic form. Not a copy, not an approximation, not one of the imitations that have appeared elsewhere online, but the real sequence, built from 30 years of dedicated research, delivered in 7 minutes of audio that your brain will recognize the moment it arrives. $39.90. Days to experience it fully before you evaluate it. And a version of yourself waiting on the other side of that evaluation that will make $39 feel like the most significant investment you ever made in the most important piece of equipment you will ever own. And if you feel moved to sow into this work beyond that, to partner financially with what this channel is building and the reach it is extending into the lives of chosen ones who are still searching for this message, that link is also in the description and in the pinned comment below. Every seed planted here is planted in ground that is producing and the harvest from ground like that has a tendency to exceed every reasonable expectation. Now, before you go, I want to ask you for 3 things that will take less than 1 minute combined and will extend the reach of what you just received further than you can currently calculate. First, if this message moved something in you, hit the like button. Not as a courtesy, but as a declaration that this kind of content deserves to find more people, and that your endorsement is part of how it gets there. Second, share this with someone whose name has been in your mind throughout this message. You know who they are. The prompting you feel toward a specific person is not random. It is a chosen one recognizing another from across the distance. One share from you today could be the appointed moment in their life that they will later describe as the turning point. Third, subscribe if you have not already, because what has been built in these 10 sections is not the fullness of what is coming through this channel. It is the foundation, and the structure that rises from it will need you present to receive it as it arrives. You have come too far to turn back now. Every section of this message, every truth that has landed in your spirit, every declaration that heaven has spoken over your life from the moment you began reading until this very breath you are drawing right now, all of it has been building toward this single defining moment. You are standing at a threshold, not a threshold you can see with your natural eyes, but one your spirit recognizes with absolute certainty. The kind of recognition that comes when something deep inside you suddenly aligns with something eternal that was always true about who you are. This is the moment you cross over. This is the moment the chosen one stops living from the outside of their identity and steps fully and permanently into the inside of it. God has been speaking to you throughout this entire message. And now He is speaking one final declaration over your life, and it is the most important thing you will carry with you when you leave this moment and return to the world that is waiting for you on the other side. You are chosen, not as a consolation, not as a runner-up prize given to someone who almost made the first cut but did not quite qualify. You are chosen the way a craftsman chooses the finest material for their greatest work. You are chosen the way a general chooses their most trusted soldier for the most critical mission. You are chosen deliberately, specifically, and irrevocably by a God who does not make mistakes and does not change His mind. And that choosing is the foundation of everything that is about to unfold in your life. Think about everything this message has walked you through, and understand that none of it was presented to you simply as information. It was presented as the framework of a new way of seeing yourself and your life. You heard in the beginning that a divine summons had arrived, that heaven itself had pressed pause on everything else to deliver a message directly to you. And that was true. It is still true. You did not find this message. This message found you because God orchestrated this moment. The same way He has been orchestrating every moment of your life with precision and purpose and a love that cannot be measured by any human standard. You heard that you were never meant to blend in, and you received the confirmation that every season of feeling like an outsider, every moment of being misunderstood and underestimated and overlooked, was actually the protective covering of a God who refused to allow the world to make you ordinary. You are not ordinary. You were never ordinary, and the life that is coming to you is not an ordinary life. It is the life that was written for someone who was set apart before they were born. And it is arriving now with everything that setting apart was always pointing toward. You heard that the silence was never abandonment. And in that truth, something that had been broken in you began to be restored. The wounds that the long seasons of waiting inflicted on your faith are being healed right now, by the understanding that every moment of silence was productive. Every moment of stillness was intentional, and every prayer that seemed to go unanswered was actually being answered in the invisible realm, in ways that your natural perception could not detect. The preparation was real. The process was necessary, and you are the proof that it worked. You heard that the enemy feared what you would discover, and now you know what he feared. He feared this moment. He feared the moment a chosen one would receive the full revelation of their identity, their authority, and their assignment, because a chosen one who knows who they are is the most unstoppable force on the face of the earth. The attacks that came against your mind, your relationships, your provision, and your peace were all designed to prevent you from arriving at this exact moment of clarity. They failed. You are here. The revelation has landed, and there is nothing the darkness can do to take back what God has just deposited into your spirit. You heard that your breaking point was your turning point, and that truth is now embedded in the foundation of how you will read every future season of your life. You will never again look at a difficult season with the assumption that God has abandoned you. You will never again interpret the pressure of preparation as evidence of punishment. You will carry forward the knowledge God is the God of reversals, the God who takes what was meant to destroy and transforms it into the most powerful chapter of your testimony. And that testimony is going to reach people who need it in ways that only the testimony of someone who has genuinely been through the fire can reach them. You heard that massive is not just a word, and you received the expanded understanding of what heaven means when it uses that word to describe what is coming into your life. You understand now that massive means every dimension, every area, every corner of your existence that has been under pressure or in lack or held in delay. You understand that the blessing coming to you is not rationed or partial or designed to help in some areas while others remain unchanged. It is comprehensive. It is complete. It is the kind of move of God that touches everything at once and leaves nothing as it was before it arrived. You heard that the blessing carries an assignment, and you received the sacred understanding that you are not just a recipient of grace, but a distributor of it. What is coming through you is greater than what is coming to you, and that truth protects you from the temptation to hoard or to turn inward or to forget the people whose freedom is connected to your faithfulness. You are a channel of heaven, and the river that is about to flow through your life is going to reach places and people that you have not yet imagined. You heard that sitting down is a sacred command, and you made the courageous choice to release the striving, to open your hands, to surrender the outcomes that you have been carrying with a grip so tight it has left marks on your spirit. That surrender was the most powerful thing you have done in this season, and it has shifted something in the atmosphere around your life that no amount of striving could have shifted. And you heard that heaven is already moving on your behalf, that angels are in motion, that doors are being unlocked, that chains are being broken in the invisible realm. And now you know it is true. Not because someone told you, but because your spirit received it with the certainty of first-hand revelation. So hear this final declaration as you cross the threshold that you are crossing right now. You are not the same person who began reading this message. Something has shifted. Something has settled. Something has been unlocked in you that cannot be locked again, and something has been released over you that cannot be recalled. You are stepping into the fullness of everything God declared over your life before the world began, and you are doing it with eyes open and a heart that is fully surrendered to the God who chose you, prepared you, protected you, and is now releasing you into the greatest season of your life. Rise, chosen one. Rise knowing you are seen. Rise knowing you are known. Rise knowing that what is coming is massive, that heaven is behind it, that nothing on earth or beneath it can stop what God has already decreed did. Your best days are not behind you. They are not even close behind you. They are rushing toward you right now with a force and a fullness that is going to change everything. Type "I am chosen" and "I am ready" in the comments right now, and share this message with someone whose spirit needs to receive this word today.